Perfect. Perfect. All right. Well, once again, welcome to the official College Factory Conference, everybody. We're so happy you're here. It is my pleasure today to introduce Eric Johnson, local Athenian, UGA graduate, and director of the UGA Visitors Center, among other things. EJ, we're so excited to hear from you today. If you want to give a longer bio, that is totally great as well. But I know you have a lot of wisdom to give us. So I'll let you get started.
Hey, good morning, Maggie. Can you hear me all right? Good. Am I able to share my screen?
Yes, you should be able to. Let us know
Let's
if
give
you
it a
run into
go.
any problems.
Kind of rusty on screen sharing. It's been a while, so we'll give it a shot here. All right, let's see what happens. You got me?
Perfect.
Hi, again, as Maggie said, I'm Eric Johnson. I'm the director of the University of Georgia Visitors Center. I'm beginning, this summer, I began my 30th year working for the University of Georgia. It's crazy for me to think about. The first 15 years I worked here, I was in the admissions office of undergraduate admissions, as director of new student orientation, which was a lot of fun, a great job working with freshmen and the college students who lead them. The last 15 years, I've been at the university as the director of the Visitor Center, as Maggie said, and that's the program that runs the daily campus tours and oversees the tour guide program, which is also a happy little place on campus. So basically, I've spent 30 years working with college students and with high school students who are thinking about going to college. So I love what the College Factory is doing. I'm honored to be a part of this conversation this morning. And I do have two daughters currently enrolled at Cedar Shoals High School. So this is right in my wheelhouse right now, and I'm soaking all this in for them as well. I'm going to start by telling you a story. 1986, I was a senior at the University of Georgia, walking up the hill, the North Campus Hill from my dorm. I lived in Lipscomb Hall. I was an RA, a resident assistant in Lipscomb Hall. Was walking up those steps, which now look amazing, but back then were just concrete steps. And if any UGA student knows, it's a hike to get up to North Campus from the middle of campus. And I was trudging up the hill, headed to a class in Peabody Hall. And I was kind of downhearted, discouraged. I was a senior about to graduate, but I was feeling kind of lost and unsure of what I was going to do with my life, unsure of deeper things like what I was about, what I really stood for. So I had kind of been disoriented over the last couple of years. It's like, what is wrong? There's a dark cloud hanging over my head my senior year when I should be king of the world, I thought. It's like, what's wrong with me? And I walked into that class that morning. It was a religion class. Professor Howard, George Howard, was teaching the class. And in the middle of the class, he took on to a tangent, took a little tangent, as professors can do, no problem. But he went to the chalkboard. We had chalkboards back then. And he went up to the chalkboard and he said, imagine this chalkboard represents all possible knowledge in the universe. Okay. And then he drew this little circle in the middle of the chalkboard and said, imagine this little circle represents your knowledge of all the possible knowledge. Your knowledge is actually true. Okay. He said, now let's say you get an education. You learn more, you gain more knowledge. And then he drew a bigger circle around the little circle. He said, now your circle of knowledge has grown larger thanks to your education. Okay. Okay. And he said, but here's the paradox. Now that your circle of knowledge has grown larger, the circumference of your circle is now touching more of all the things you don't know. So the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And when he said that, me, discouraged senior sitting in the classroom, had an epiphany, like brain, wow. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that must be what has happened to me. Because I was thinking back to myself as a freshman, when I was 18 years old, first generation college student coming to school on a Pell Grant and an academic scholarship. When I was 18 and I walked into the doors of Lipscomb Hall on our campus, I thought I'd get it almost all figured out. I thought I knew almost everything. I was so smart. I was so sure of myself. You may know some 18-year-olds kind of like that, but that's the way I was. And then as a senior, I felt like I knew nothing. And when Dr. Howard said that, I'm like, this must mean that education worked on me. Because now, after 4 years of college, I feel like an idiot, and that's okay. In fact, that's expected. And if I didn't feel that way, then I must have missed something along the way. And I walked out of that classroom that day with a lighter step and more confident and more excited about it's okay not to know, to be unsure of things. And probably the bigger fear is that those who think they've got it all figured out are so wrong. And so that was this defining moment for me about what higher education meant, that I started off as a young freshman and I ended up as a senior with lots more questions than I had answers. And that was exciting to me. Putting that perspective of being excited about not knowing and spending my life devoted to education and seeing that happen, and all the college students I get to work with has been a real delight. So what happens here is the more you grow in your knowledge, the more potential for wonder in your life. So if you want a more wonder-filled, wonderful life, then the pursuit of education is a key to that. I love this thought: the larger the island of knowledge, the longer the shoreline of wonder. And that's what I hope that we are all imbuing in education, that we're pursuing knowledge and pursuing understanding to have a more wonder-filled life. It's a great line. This is the guy, Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote Empire Strikes Back, Raiders of the Lost Ark, two of my all-time favorites, by the way. But he had this lovely thought about the heroes are the ones that are still changing, while the villains are locked and petrified into what they are. I think that's really a nice thought, that if you're unsure of yourself and you don't have it all figured out, there's that potential for opportunity. There's a potential to become even more than what you are now. And the sad thing is those folks who lock their circle of knowledge kind of tightly into place and aren't ready for new ideas and new opportunities in their life. So it's okay if you're unsure and uncertain, and that's really the sweet spot to be in, especially if you want to become the hero of your own life. So my experience with college and higher education really drilled into me the continuing pursuit of knowledge and understanding, and the disorienting joy that comes with that. But it also drilled into me the importance of relationships. Humans are designed, wired for connection and community and relationship. We evolved to rely on each other in a way that most other creatures on this planet are not. And it's when we're in isolation that we struggle. One of the beauties of college is that we are learning together in community and not alone, not just zooming in on everything or downloading it from the internet. We are having conversations face to face, building connections and building friendships. And that has some real joy in it. The other thing I got out of my college experience was some of the greatest friends of my life. I still have some group chats with college buddies from Lipscomb Hall, from UGA. And just this week, we were chatting with each other. When I got married in my 30s, my groomsmen were guys from college still. So there's something special about the friendships you bond with each other throughout your higher education years. There's this great TED Talk. I encourage you to go watch if you get a chance. Robert Waldinger, What Makes a Good Life. He's a researcher at Harvard, and he did this research on the study of adult development that's been going on since the 1930s, that he's inherited this study. And they basically poll people on their lives throughout their lives to find out some key factors about what makes for a happy life, in essence. And the things that people assume, especially young people, teenagers and college students, they assume being rich and famous will make them happy. And this gentleman's study from Harvard, after all these years, shows that has no bearing whatsoever on happiness. The only single factor that shows up over and over again for people that report having a happy life is relationships. Those people who built strong and healthy relationships, regardless of their income or their career or level of fame, social media status, none of those things mattered. The only thing that mattered for true happiness was strong, healthy, quality relationships. Those people who reported happy, healthy relationships also reported healthier lives and longer lives. And I think those things, it's important to think about your career and making plans, but it's also important to prioritize people in your life as well. And I really think that's what higher education helps us do also. There's a sense of community in higher education that I found nowhere else. And that's probably why I've devoted my career to it. I was just yesterday, this is a great thought from Bertrand Russell. And this kind of combines, the good life is one inspired by love and guided by knowledge. This is combining those two things that I think are so important. The good life is one inspired by love, building relationships and connections with others, and in the pursuit of knowledge and understanding. You put those two things together, and that is a good life and the potential for really good things coming your way. And that's what I think college does so well. Even though we're in a connected world and an internet generation, you would ask our students today, once they came back to doing classes in person, it changed everything. And it brought this depth of understanding and this sense of comfort that comes with learning side by side and face to face that you just can't get plugged in and learning. Yesterday, I took this photo of some of our tour guides. They were about to go give a tour. Maggie's in that photo as well. and just struck me this sense of community that we have on our campus. But what also struck me is I've been doing this for almost 30 years, working with college students. And what I wanted to share with you today was some of the key lessons I have learned from college students. And I keep learning from college students. So I've got three main things that I wanted to share with you, and then see if you had any questions about them. The main things are I got kind of a big three ideas that I've gleaned from years of this. The first one is to default to intrinsic rewards over extrinsic rewards. And to be clear, intrinsic means you do a thing for the thing itself, not for the reward. Extrinsic means you do a thing for the money or the applause or the fame. Intrinsic means you do it just because you love it, because there's something of value to you intrinsically to it. And that's where I've seen college students really have taught me a lot about how to make the most of their educational experience. I had this student, Gretchen, who worked for me as a student orientation leader at the University of Georgia in 1999. And orientation leaders, of course, greet all the new freshmen. And so many new freshmen walk in the door for orientation uncertain about their major. Undecided is our most popular major, and that's actually a good thing. But they walk in the door undecided, but they feel this pressure to have it all figured out, to have a major in mind. And so as an orientation leader, Gretchen was regularly confronted with freshmen who were like, Gretchen, what should I major in? How do I decide my major? And this was her recommendation to them. She told them, I was a freshman undecided major as well. And she said, so I took the University of Georgia bulletin. It's a college catalog. Every college has one. There used to be a book, a paper book, and now they're all online. You can go to our bulletin.uga.edu if you want to see UGA's website. But she said, I took the bulletin, and back when it was a paper copy, and she said, I read every course description that the university offered. And so every college does this. They'll have a paragraph description of every class that is taught at that school. And it's not a very exciting read. It's just a paragraph saying, this is what you will learn in this class. But Gretchen said, I took the course catalog and I took a pen back when it was a paper book. And she said, I read every course description. And she said, every time I read a course description of a class that I thought, well, that sounds like fun. I would enjoy that class. I would enjoy learning that. She said, I circled that class. And when I circled the class, it's like, all right, I was saying this is a class I would love to take. So she went through, read every course description in the book, hundreds of course descriptions, only circling those she got excited about. When she finished, she went back through the book and counted which major had the most courses circled. And then she said, well, that will be my major. And when she told me this, I had another one of those like aha moments. Oh my gosh, how brilliantly simple and intuitive that is, that she went with this intrinsic notion of what would I just enjoy for the class itself, not for what kind of career or grad program I could get or how much money I could make down the road or what would look impressive to my family and friends, but what would I enjoy for a whole semester sitting in the class, learning, doing, working on. And that intrinsic motivation led her, in this case, to communication studies, which is public speaking and interpersonal communication. And I'm sure parents would hear this and say, yeah, well, what kind of job are you going to get with that? Well, the thing was, she chose classes that she loved and she did really well at them because she loved it. It was her thing. And she excelled and she thrived. And at the end of college, she did so well that she then went to graduate school at Harvard. So she did well in this program, and it led her onto a great path for ultimate success. And she's very successful to this day, as 4 little boys living in Decatur, Georgia. I know what she's doing right now. But I loved her approach that this is how to think about things. Do a thing that would find joy for you, not for any public praise or attention. And it may guide you on a much more wholesome and healthy and reasonable path than trying to guess what the market is going to look like in 4 years, because who the heck knows the way the world's changing, and trying to guess, do what your parents or your family want. Honor your parents, of course, but you got to figure out what you're going to sit through the classes on. You're going to take this education. It's on you to pick a class and a program that works and speaks to you and your intrinsic desires. Great quote from Walt Disney. You can't go wrong with Walt Disney. He said at one point, we don't make movies to make money. We make money so we can make more movies. If you can find something in your life like this, you're set. You can find a thing you do because the thing delights you, because the work you do delights you, that is not for the reward, but the reward helps fuel the drive to make more of the thing you love. That is the path to get on. So don't be attached to the outcomes, the expectations. And this can apply beyond just choosing a major. This applies to the way you pursue activities, the way you interview for things, the way you fill out your essays for college applications. I always tell the story of Austin. who was a student, a freshman at UGA, first year student, who applied to be an orientation leader at the university when I was running that program. It's a really competitive position to be selected for. There's a long 2-step interview process. Freshmen typically are not very successful because it's mostly upperclassmen, but this young freshman applied. And I very well remember his first interview. It was in a group setting, like 4 students interviewing at a time across from a committee. And Austin was really impressive. He was bright, thoughtful, had great things to say, wore a little coat and tie. He was really prepared and on point, and just gave us good insight about what it was like to be a freshman at the university. So we selected him for the second round of interviews, and he came back for the second round, which was an individual interview. Sat in my office with my assistant director, had one more interview for 30 minutes all to himself. Again, so impressive, really engaging, had good ideas about the university, good ideas about college, clearly big-hearted, he cared a lot, he was relaxed, so confident and strong, and we hired him. We only hired 12 students a year to do this job. The next week, we had the 12 new students all gathered to meet for the first time, to get the plan, to get the schedule, to start training. At the end of that first meeting, young Austin, who was the only freshman of the 12, approached me privately and said, "Can I talk with you for a moment?" I said, "Sure." He said, "EJ," they call me EJ. He said, "Why did you hire me?" And it was like almost angst on his part. I'm like, usually people get excited when I pick them for a cool job like this. And he said, no, I'm a freshman. He said, and when I got to school, I joined a club, and the club was really trying to get us all involved. And they said, "Hey, you should try out for things and get involved on campus and other things as well." And they said, "You should apply to be an orientation leader." And the guy that was telling this said, "They don't take freshmen, but it's good interview experience." And so Austin sat through 2 rounds of interviews thinking it was just practice, just a formality, that the job wasn't even at stake for him. And he walked in completely unburdened with any expectation or worry about getting the job, because he didn't think it was even an option for him. And he was amazing. And again, I had another one of those, oh my gosh, this guy was doing this thing just in the moment for the interview itself, not for what was at the end of the interview. He wasn't trying to get anything. He was just trying to have a great conversation and get good at talking with people in interviews. And he accidentally stumbled into this intrinsic approach that I recommend to you. And how to get into this Zen-like state, I can't quite convey. I'm not sure myself, but I've interviewed people for 30 years. And the best interviews are those where the student is completely present and not conflicted about what's at stake. I had another young lady who, for the same interview process, made it through the first round, so was obviously really strong, made it to the second round, sat in my office, and the first question I always ask, "Hey, remind us why you want to do this job." I'm such an easy interviewer. I really try to make it easy on people. And it's just the obvious question. I asked my obvious question, "Why do you want to do this job again?" And she immediately started crying. I'm not good with crying. I go find some tissue somewhere, bring it to her, and she finally stops crying and breathes. And then she looks at me and says, "I'm so sorry. I just want this job so much." The opposite of Austin, she was so tangled up in expectations and the burden of wanting a thing and what the outcome might be and the extrinsic reward that she couldn't function in the moment. And I don't know how to tell you to get into the state, but it can be transformational. Let me just give you interviews as an example. The next time you have an interview for a scholarship, for a club officer opportunity, whatever it may be, for a college interview, whatever it may be, if you simply prepare yourself to walk in an interview and just have a quality conversation with the other people, that if the only thing you get out of the interview is a chance to express yourself and why you care about this thing that you're interviewing for, why it's important to you and your ideas about it, and a chance to listen to the others in the room, to hear them, to make a human connection. If that's all you get out of it, you'll be satisfied. Then you'll be so much better off than if you walk in worried about what the consequences might be of this interview. Again, not easy to do, but it's worthwhile thinking about. And it can transform a lot of things in your life, from whether you do interviews in a certain way, a performance, a public speaking opportunity, your dating life. I better not go there, whatever it may be. Drop those expectations, live in the moment, focus on the intrinsic reward, and things will make a difference for you. So again, college students teaching me so much good stuff. My second big thought that I've learned from college students is to just do something, take action. This is Austin Kleon's an artist that I really like. And he had this great thought, and he will share this often: don't wait until you know who you are to get started. The way you figure yourself out is by making things. This is magic. There's so many folks who are like, waiting for a certain magical time to know what they want to do or know what kind of things they should be involved in or kind of person they want to be. The best way to do that is just start doing things, start taking action on the things that you're thinking about. And that's the way to figure things out, not waiting and hoping and just like hope it'll come to you someday. Just start doing something. There's this great thought of act as if you are who you want to be already. This is Kevin Smith. He's a filmmaker. It's a crazy photo, all right? He's a filmmaker, and he made films that I don't even think I've seen necessarily. Clerks and Mallrats. These go way, way back. But he is a filmmaker, a legitimate, bona fide filmmaker. But before he was successful, he wanted to be a filmmaker, but nothing was happening. And he didn't accomplish anything. He wasn't successful in his business. And he would moan about it, as you might want to do. It's like, oh, it's not working. I'm not going to be a filmmaker. It's not working. And one day his older sister stopped him short. I have an older sister, so I appreciate this. And his older sister said to him, like, shut up already. Be a filmmaker, she said. You say you want to be, just be a filmmaker. And he was about to protest and say, I'm trying to tell you. But then he realized she's on to something. He later said that was the $1 million advice of his life. And so after she told him that, the next morning he woke up and instead of saying, I want to be a filmmaker, how's it going to work? He said, I'm a filmmaker. What does a filmmaker eat for breakfast? What does a filmmaker do after breakfast? What do they do all day? And he started doing the things a filmmaker would do until he truly became a successful, accomplished filmmaker. And there was that magic moment of wanting a thing versus just doing the thing you want to do. Without asking permission, just start doing the thing you love to do. This is Lin-Manuel Miranda. If you don't know, he wrote Hamilton, starred in Hamilton, one of my favorite characters of the last few years. He's a remarkable story. He said that The Little Mermaid changed his life, that when he was a little boy, he watched The Little Mermaid over and over. And why not? Who wouldn't watch The Little Mermaid over and over? But he said he knew when he watched that show that I want to make music and entertain and tell stories. And so he went to Performing Arts College. While he was in Performing Arts College, it was a 4-year program, a bachelor's degree. Every year of college, he said, he wrote a complete Broadway musical. So he walked out of college having written 4 Broadway musicals. These were not class assignments. He wasn't being told he was in a class for a grade. He just knew, like, this is what I want to do. I think I want to do this. Let me give it a go. And he just started writing. He didn't wait for permission. He didn't wait for a diploma. He just said, I want to be a creator. Let me start creating. Why do I need to wait or have a degree or permission to create? He still uses education for that, but he wasn't waiting around on it. I'm reminded, I used to work in the admissions office, and I read all the admissions applications. It's a delight. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot, but it's a lot of fun. And I remember you'd read the usual applications and people were in the same clubs over and over again. And you get kind of numb to seeing all the things they're all in. I remember this one application, I opened up the application to the first page and it listed the students' high school activities. There were 0, no high school activities listed, which is kind of hard to pull off. Like usually you're in something in high school, even if you don't want to be, you get put in something, but this guy had 0. And I thought it was kind of bold for him to leave that page blank. Then I turned the page. The next page was any work experience. Well, this young man had listed that he had started his own lawn care business as a freshman in high school, 9th grader. But by the time he was a senior, he was the Mark Cuban of lawn care. He had contracts all over the city. He had employees. He had his own lawn care company. And I looked back and he was a landscape architecture major intent. And it's like, this all makes sense. This young man had figured out the thing that he was excited about and was making things happen. He was doing what he wanted to do. We admitted him. It didn't matter. He didn't have to fit some cookie cutter mold of X number of clubs and a certain kind of score. It was like, this is the kind of kid who's going to make good things happen because he's already taking action on making good things happen. So that if you have a default to action. Hopefully it's healthy, wholesome, safe, legal action. Do those things. But when in doubt, just do something. Start writing something down. Start creating a path for you. And you will learn to make course corrections and change things. In college, a lot of the freshmen will just like join a million things, which I think is a really good idea. Just try a lot of things early on. And then you can start winnowing down the things that make the most sense to you. Later on, whether it's academics or work or extracurricular, you can start figuring things out once you've given things a try. But try some things out and see where that takes you. And then the third idea that I had for you that I've learned from college students is to just be awesome, be excellent at what you do, have some pride, do the best you can. There's this Steve Martin is one of my favorite actors. And I think most people don't know who he is anymore, but now he's coming back because he's on Hulu now. He's on, what's the movie? The show, Only Murders in the Building on Hulu. Go check that out. But he was famous as a young man as probably the most successful stand-up comedian in the world. Didn't start out that way. When he was a kid, he lived in Southern California, and Disneyland opened when he was about 10 years old, within a bike ride drive from his house. First of all, can you imagine Disneyland being bicycle ride distance from your house as a kid? So of course, he pedals his bike up to the doors of Disneyland and says, "Do you hire kids?" And they say, "Well, kid, you can give out programs at the entrance." So he started his show business career at the Disneyland entrance when it opened, giving out programs. He eventually got a job inside the park doing things like working at the magic shop. And so he started getting the bug for entertainment. There was a performer at Disneyland that he aspired to be like. So when he went to college, he did go to college, he graduated and told his folks, "Mom and Dad, I want to be a stand-up comedian." I'm sure they were delighted and proud of him, but he was committed and he made the effort. He started showing up at clubs all across the West Coast doing his act. And he would have very small crowds, 5 people, 4 people, 10 people, not making much money, living on friends' sofas. He did that for about 10 years. But then after 10 years, all of a sudden became a national sensation. His act was so amazing that it was selling out 10,000-seat arenas just to see him do comedy. And they asked him at one point, "Steve Martin, you're this successful comedian." Now he's a movie star and he made TV shows and he's a musician. They asked him right after he became famous, like, what's your secret, Steve Martin? How did you do this? And this was his response: "Be so good, they can't ignore you." And by that, he went on to say, "For 10 years, I struggled to be successful, but I stuck with it. And what I did was every time I did a show, I would walk out from that show, think, what went well, what could be better?" And he kept refining and rethinking and iterating on what he had done that worked and what could be better about it. And he stuck with the thing and focused on, how can I be awesome? And how can I be innovative? And how can I come up with stuff that's never been done before? And that led him 10 years later, patience pays off, to amazing success. And he's had a lifetime and a career of success ever since. Great thought from the ancient Greeks: happiness is the full use of your powers along lines of excellence. And that may be the question we all have to ask ourselves is, are we fulfilling our potential? I know I'm not, but what are the ways? Maybe you go to bed every night, ask yourselves, how can I be better tomorrow than I was today? How can I improve this academically as a student? What can I do better? Can I have a better system? Can I be more attentive? Can I take notes better? Can I study better? Can I work with my classmates better? Can I build a better relationship with teachers? Just keep thinking about yourself. How can I move further along the lines of being amazing and awesome? And it's not a bad thing to aim high. I'm sure there's fear if you have a high goal for yourself, whether it's to achieve something academically or in your career or build a nonprofit, whatever it may be. Why not aim high? In fact, I've often heard there's a lot less competition for achieving really big goals than there is for average goals, because almost all people, that's why it's average, aim for something in the middle. And there's a lot of people fighting for the middle stuff. But if you're looking for something kind of outlandish and out there, not a lot of folks out there. And you might have a better chance of making something big happen than something just in the middle. And we're kind of wrapping up with you here. One of the things I think is important is that you focus. If you have to focus on something, take the focus off yourself a little bit. I've told you some introspection. I know, but I think it's also important to think about how your talents can make a difference for others. And great thought from Ingersoll: "We rise by lifting others." And so one of the things I found most helpful when I'm talking with college students is worried about what they want out of life. That they're in my office, people really come in, I'm not sure what to do or be and what I want to get, what do I want out of my life. A healthy way to flip that thought for you might be, what do I want to give? What talents, what skills, what abilities do I have that I would love to share with the world that might make a difference? It might make somebody else's life better. And it makes, even when we give speeches, we have campus tour guides who give tours. And I always remind them, it's called giving a tour. You have a gift to give. When a new tour guide gets started, they're often so anxious about what the audience, the tour group might think of them, that it's almost incapacitating. There's this, they get in their heads too much. Oh, am I going to be funny? Are they going to think I'm charming and clever? Will I have good insights? But I get nervous when I talk to an audience too. I'm nervous right now. But if I start to think instead, I'm giving a speech, it's a gift. What do I have to give? And if I flip my attention to the audience, to the people I'm serving, I kind of relax and I get excited. It's like, oh, I've got something worthwhile to share, to give. And it takes pressure off of me because it allows me to funnel that energy to giving something to others. And if I put my attention on the audience and what they're about to get and receive, I can relax a little bit. And I think that's worthwhile to think about as you're making an educational path, is like, where can I make a contribution? Where can I find a path that I could get good at something that would give back in some way to others? And that can be a magical release for so many people who are otherwise caught up in what's going to be lucrative and rewarding. And I almost think if you think this way, good things will happen without you trying too hard. Don't overthink it. Don't try too hard. Like, where's this path going to lead me 5 years, 6 years? How much money am I going to make? What's the career path? Just think about, where can I make a difference? Where can I make a contribution? Where do my talents, where can my potential be most fulfilled in a positive way? Love this thought. If you're just getting started out, if you're in high school or college, this sense of unlimited, infinite potential is invigorating. And even if you physically need to take an empty piece of paper, there's something special about a blank computer screen, iPad screen, empty piece of paper that's got nothing on it. And you get a chance to do whatever and start brainstorming and thinking through what your gift to the world might be and how you can thrive and what that might look like for you. And just start writing things down. There is something powerful about trying to express yourself, and just sitting around thinking won't do it. But if you try to write things down, whether it's a journal to yourself or you create a blog or whatever, or a YouTube channel, TikTok's probably not long enough for this, but find a way to express yourself. And it's only by, how will I know what I think until I see what I say, is real. The best way to understand something is to try to express it. So if you're trying to figure out your path in your career, sit down and write it down, try to express it in whatever medium you might use that to try to say it. And maybe start off with what if, that big what if question mark, and see if that doesn't inspire you and excite you in some way. All right, my final word to you, here you go. Remember, it's that spread love and pursue truth, that sense of the good life is one inspired by love and guided by knowledge. If you can build your life around those things, relationships and pursuit of understanding and knowledge and truth, and then put your heart and soul into it, you've got wonderful, wonderful adventures ahead of you. I'm certainly at your service. I'm on campus at the Four Towers building at the University of Georgia Visitors Center. So if you're local or on campus, you're welcome to drop by anytime. I have the shortest email address at the University of Georgia. The benefits of having been here before the internet existed. So, old people for the win. So feel free to commit my email address to memory. I'm certainly at your service. I don't know. I'm going to stop sharing my screen if I can figure out how to get out of this. Maggie, I'm going to turn it back over to you now at this point.
That was perfect. EJ, thank you so much. I think I've heard tiny tidbits of that speech throughout being an employee. No, I love it. I love it. I was just going to say it's always ever relevant. And I think we all appreciated it. High school students and collegians and, leaders of the College Factory alike. So we so appreciate you being here. And I'm really glad we recorded this so that other people can glean from your wisdom as well. That said, I'll stop recording in just a moment, and then we'll take a little break before our next session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.